You talked in your intro about what the Mothman might be, the overall phenomena. Any thoughts on why everything happened and is continuing to happen, I guess?
Why Mothman?
The whole phenomenon. Is there a why behind it, all of it?
Well, it kind of depends on your point of view. You know, I like the wheel analogy. That's one of my random notes I got recently. Imagine an old-time wagon wheel, and the spoke is the phenomenon. And it's putting out energy from everyone's minds collectively. And a lot of it comes from the Buddhist point of view in a way. It's all backwards in Buddhism. In Buddhism, physical reality doesn't cause consciousness. It's the other way around. There's a universal consciousness which causes physical things to form. And so along those lines, this spoke of the wheel is pumping out from somewhere in the universe. Energy is pumping out, and then each spoke of the wheel is a different religion. Almost. What did I say here? It's each of the religions is an expression of that phenomenon, and they're all describing the same thing, and they're all being caused in a sense by the same thing. And so I try to be well versed in as many of them as I can, so that if I'm talking to a Christian, I can talk about the symbolisms there that might tie in, or Buddhism or whatever, or the occult or science. But I think it's always going to go on as long as there are people. And in some way, I think even if people were destroyed by some cataclysm, that we would pop back up again. Almost.
One other question. Do you think it's happening because of us, or do you think we're just kind of caught in the middle of it all?
That makes me think of the phrase that everyone likes to talk about, that you create your own reality. And that's a good phrase, because for some people it really helps them at a certain time in their life, but in another way it's kind of misleading. In the East, they think it's sort of the other way around, that reality is creating you. Again, if consciousness is existing on its own and causing everything to form, one thing they'll do if you're with like a Buddhist master, they'll ask you, well, right now, could you stop breathing? And most people say, yeah, I could hold my breath, but 30 seconds later they're gasping for air, or so in some ways you can't really. We're all programs in a way. We're all operating on programs that are way beyond our ability to control. You have some control, like I was saying earlier. It's limited control. But the basic processes of life are occurring without our control. You're born, you're there, you have to eat, and on the cycle goes. So I think it's just a result of living on Earth. And it really is an Earth energy, I think, at its core. You notice that certain places have more of the energy, the magnetism, or whatever it is that's causing people to see things. And it's not that it's an hallucination. I don't think Mothman is a complete hallucination. I think he's a temporary hallucination, connected to Earth energies, and he's very similar to Loki in the Norse mythology. Loki comes out of a tree. And that's exactly what I saw at this same spot where my friend saw Mothman. And my other friend saw the Virgin Mary. And the Die-Fed Enigma is a book that came out in the 60s that talked about a farm in England where everyone was seeing all of these different entities in the same place, including cows being moved. Cattle were not being mutilated, they were being moved en masse out of locked enclosures inside, and were being found miles away. And there's no way they could have been moved. So it's a natural phenomenon, but at the same time, certain organizations have tried to figure out how to use that phenomenon. And I think that's where people get confused, is some of the things we're seeing are generated by men and organizations, and some of it's totally natural. I sort of occupy that. I'm one of the few people out there just saying there's two different things going on here. Try to sort it out each time you study a certain sighting. Is it real, or is it some group doing an experiment? Any other over here to your right?
Hi, Andy. In your books and your work online, you've laid out past prophetic incidents that have been foretold and come true. What's the future outlook? Where are we going?
Oh, man. Is it a depressing question or a happy question?
You know, it sort of has stopped. Like I say, I got a bunch of stuff about the last 5 years, and then it might move on to somebody else. You might be the next person that gets the vision of what's coming next. You mean like what's coming next in terms of major incidents that the Mothman might show up at, pretending like the Minneapolis bridge collapse?
Where's the phenomena going? Where are we going?
You know, you hear so many different things. I'm not sure how I feel about it. There are Buddhists out there saying that we're going to go through some really dark ages. And the Kali Yuga calendar sort of implies that in a few, maybe 5,000 more years, we'll really be into an enlightenment age. I don't know what's going to happen in the next 5,000 years, though. That's a 26,000-year cycle that the Hindus have, where mankind goes from an enlightenment age and sort of into the Dark Ages again. And the Dark Ages would have corresponded with, say, the Middle Ages. That was the bottom, or the low point of the Kali Yuga calendar. So it kind of has some validity. And so we're on the upswing now. But the phenomenon is always going on, and it seems to. It depends on the culture. If the culture has some system for informing its citizens about what's going on, it seems to work a lot better. Like in Indonesia, they have schools and it's just a they have every family has a Garuda knife in their cupboard. It's a wavy knife. You've probably seen them. They're called Chris knives. They have Garudas carved on them, and they'll put this in its scabbard and put it in a position of like on the altar, above the fireplace, the mantle, and this thing will rattle when someone in the family is about to be harmed. And think if we could do that here. I mean, it would help everyone. But the belief systems are pretty limiting in Western culture in some ways. I mean, I qualify that because Westerners do have it in them. There's a lot of people who are using talismans and I just visited my aunt who's 84. She's got beads on her bedroom door, and she's got an owl statue there. She's a Christian, never thought of anything else but Christianity, but she's still using what she can and understanding that there is something to it. Any other? Back here.
Yeah, well, Doug's out there somewhere. Doug, where are you at?
He went to get...
Oh, there you are.
Well, I'll go to my random notes. What do we have? Kind of gone over a lot of this already. Wow. Did you want to ask about slackers?
Oh, I want to complain about them. I don't think these people want to hear that. We'll talk later.
Okay.
Does anybody out there have a question? Just raise your hand.
Hey, I have a question. Oh. Have you, what do you think? I'm just Doug. I'm going with the mic. I've been wandering around all day. What do you feel when you go up to the TNT area? That's where the sightings began.
Well, like a lot of things in the Mothman story, I can't tell if it's synthetic or natural. It could be that the Garuda, the Thunderbird, whatever you want to call it, showed up because there are mounds there. And in many different cultures, mounds are connected with these entities. So that could easily be just a natural phenomenon. But it could be one that's also trying to inform people about something about the mounds. It also represents, like in England, it represents pagan culture. The dragons were always, the dragons that were slain by the king's knights were always living on mounds. Well, that's basically, I'll go with that. I kind of think that's what was going on. And then what was, the question is, what was Mothman saying about those mounds? Was there anything else going on about his being there? And if you look at the Garuda side of it, the Garuda is always trying to fight crime. Well, what crime could have been committed in the TNT area? So my thinking is always along those lines. Why there? And, you know, that's kind of a military-industrial connection. You know, is there something about the DuPonts that we need to look at? For instance, they ran the TNT area way back when. And the DuPonts do show up in different ways here and there. One thing about the TNT is that the sightings seem to start in Charleston. It's sort of moved down. And there's old stories in English lore about how and also in Southeast Asia, where these entities come out of caves and then move downstream. They usually follow streams and live on mounds that are in the stream or next to the stream. And in Egyptian lore, they start off, there's Horus and Seth. They both can be interpreted as birdmen. They also take other forms, they're shapeshifters, but oftentimes Horus is really pretty solidly a birdman. And his brother is Seth. And Seth is usually seen upstream in Egyptian lore. And he's usually more dog-related. And well, in Charleston, the sightings seem to be more dog-like. The face seemed more dog-like to people. Down here, it seemed more bird-like. So it almost seems to have followed the exact pattern that the Egyptians talked about. Entity comes out of ground for some reason, has a message, has a mission of some kind, moves downstream, and suddenly becomes more bird-like. I'm